Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una. Allahumma zidna 'ilman innaka anta 'alimul hakim. Allahumma ij'al hadhihi al-muhadara hujjatan lana la hujjatan 'alayna ya rabbil alameen. Amma ba'd. In continuation of our class, Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni, that Imam Al-Hajjawi, has been quite some time. It's almost 3 weeks or so since almost a month since we've had this, about a month? 3 weeks or a month, that we didn't have this class. And the last thing that we covered was the beginning of the chapter of the hayd, or the menstruation cycle of the woman, when she gets her menses. So a quick rehash on what we were supposed to cover, what we covered. A quick rehash on some of the things that we've covered. Before going into this particular chapter, there are principles that need to be understood in order to understand the rest of the chapter. So the Shaykh Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he starts off with Babul Hayd. What's the definition of Hayd? Menses. What's the definition of? What is it?
Bleeding.
Bleeding. Any bleeding?
Bleeding that comes from once a month from the female.
Tayyib. So the ulama, they explain, we have a linguistic meaning and a technical meaning. We're just going to get with the technical meaning here. دم طبيعة وجبلة يخرج من قعر الرحم في أوقات معلومة خلقه الله لحكمة غذاء الولد وتربيته. So the ulama of the scholars of Al-Islam, they explain the blood that comes from a woman during her menses cycle to be dam tabi'atan, natural blood that comes dam khilqa, like the blood that naturally flows yakhruj min qa'ar al-rahim, from the woman's womb, at a particular time or a specific time every month. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this blood to serve for His wisdom, غِذَاءَ الْوَلَدِ, to nourish a child, and, as they say, وَتَرْبِيَتُهُ, in terms of a benefit to the child, something that will benefit the child. This is حَسَبَ الطِّبِّ فِي زَمَانِهِمْ. This is what the scholar or the doctors during that particular time, this is what they usually said with regards to this issue. So the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he starts off by saying, لا حيد قبل 9 سنين ولا بعد 50 سنة. So if any of you have a pen, you can write down these principles, or qawaid, if you will, to understand this particular chapter. The first thing that we have to know is that there is no menses before 9 years old. That a woman cannot get her menses, or a person cannot get their menses before 9 years old. Why is it significant? What's the significance of mentioning a number here and say that a woman or a girl cannot have her menses before 9 years old? Is that important to know? Yes or no? And if it is, why? And if it's not, why not?
Because that's when she's held accountable for certain things.
Okay, so say for example, you have the 8-year-old daughter. Okay? She's bleeding at 8 years old. According to the madhab of Imam Ahmed, a woman cannot have her menses until she reaches the age of 9. So what if she has blood at 8? What is that blood considered?
In his method, he's saying, those people that's humbly, right?
Yes.
They're saying that that's not the menstrual cycle.
So what does that mean?
That she's whatever applies to her, that she has to do after she has her mens doesn't apply to her yet.
All right, so let's make it a little clearer.
It might be a disorder in the body.
Let's say, for example, a woman prays. Perhaps a Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, command your kids to pray when? Sab'ah. Tayyib. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, command your children to pray at sab'ah, 7 years old. Okay? So suppose your daughter, she prays all 5 salawat at 7 years old. When the woman has her menses, her menses, she cannot pray, can she? La. So then there's a different type of blood that comes that's not considered men's blood. Blood from the menses is called mustahada, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. This type of blood that comes, it does not prevent a woman or a girl from praying or fasting. Is that clear? Fine. Let's assume that the girl's 8 years old. We said that she cannot get her men's blood until she's what? 9. So if she's bleeding at 8, that blood is not considered menses blood. And what that means is she can still pray and fast. Is that clear? Right. We'll talk about that in a little more detail as we continue, inshallah ta'ala. So then, the first principle is, La hayda qabla tis'i sinin. There's no menses before 9 years old. Wala ba'da khamsa sinin. And nor after 50 years old. So according to Imam Ahmed, in his fiqh, that a woman or a girl cannot have her menses before 9 years old, and she does not get her menses after 50 years old. Obviously, there's some difference of opinion, but this is just a general rule. All right, so that was number 2. Number 1, there's no menses before 9. And number 2, there is no menses after 50. Okay? The next one is, wala ma hamlan. And if a woman is pregnant, she also does not get her menses. If she is pregnant, she also does not get her menses. So somebody might say, brother, I know of women that during their menses, during their pregnancy, they get their menses. The scholars of Al-Islam do not consider that blood to be men's blood. It's called blood istihada or dam fasad. It's a different type of blood. It's not considered men's blood. So therefore, if a woman bleeds, according to the madhab, if a woman bleeds during her pregnancy, she should not what? She should not leave off what? Prayer and or fasting, if she was fasting while she was pregnant. Is that clear? The next one. وَأَقَلُّهُ يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ. The shortest amount of time for a menses for a woman is 24 hours. The shortest amount of time for a woman while she's on her menses is 24 hours. وَأَكْثَرُهُ 15 يَوْمٍ. And the longest period of time a woman can have her menses is 15 days. The longest period of time that a woman can have her menses is 15 days. This is number 5. You with me? طيب. وَغَالِبُهُ سِتٌّ أَوْ سَبْعٌ. And what is غَالِبُهُ يعني, which is most likely, is that a woman will have her menses for 6 or 7 days. This is number 7. I'm sorry, this is number 6. Number 7, وَأَقَلُّ طَهْرٍ بَيْنَ الْحَيْضَتَيْنِ 13 يَوْمًا. So now the next one. If a woman gets her menses in the beginning of the month, and she gets it again towards the end of the month, the ulama say the shortest amount of time between 2 menses is 13 days. So a woman her menses cannot go off today, and then the following 2 weeks or the following week, she said her menses came on again. No. They say the shortest amount of time between two menses is 13 days. Are we clear on that? That's number 7. Number 8, La hadda li aktharihi. And there's no limit to the maximum amount of distance between menses. So, for example, a woman can get her menses today, and she may not get her menses again for another 2 months, or another month, or another 3 months. Is that clear? Any questions? No. Yes, when a woman is pregnant, her menses doesn't come.
But it will come sometime. It will come at a later time.
You mean after she has the baby or while she's pregnant?
No, this right here says there's no limit on the maximum amount of time that she's going to have a menses.
there's no limit, meaning there's no limit with regards to the distance. So say, for example, she has her menses today, and she doesn't get her menses again for another 6 months. It's possible. Some women are like that. Or 4 months, or 3 months. All right? That's what it's referring to. Like, so those are 8 principles that are used in determining a woman's menstruation cycle. Now you have to know those 8 because they become very important as we move on into the remaining part of the chapter. Is that clear? Like, so then the next one, وَتَقْضِيَ الْحَائِطْ الصَّوْمَ وَلَا صَلَاةَ. A woman that is on her menses, she makes up her fasting, but she does not make up her salah. وَلَا يَصِحَّانِ مِنْهَا بَلْ يَحْرُمَانِ. The fasting and the salah is not correct for her, rather it is haram for her. It is haram for a woman to fast and pray while she is on her menses. طيب. وَيَحْرُمُ وَطْءُهَا فِي الْفَرْجِ. And it's also impermissible for a husband to have intercourse with his wife while she is on her menses. فَإِنْ فَعَلَ فَعَلَيْهِ دِينَارٌ أَوْ نِصْفُهُ كَفَّارَةٌ. If a man were to have intercourse with his spouse while she is on her menses, then he will have to pay a kafara. He have to pay a penalty. And that penalty, as many of the scholars mentioned, is roughly around 4 grams of gold. About 4 grams of gold. وَيَسْتَمْتِعُ مِنْهَا لِمَا دُونَهُ. And he can do anything else with his spouse besides having intercourse with her. But وَإِذَا انْقَطَعَ الدَّمُ وَلَمْ تَغْتَسِلْ لَمْ يُبَحْ غَيْرُ الصِّيَامِ وَالطَّلَاقِ. If a woman stops bleeding, if her bleeding stops while she's on her menses, the only thing I'm going to give you a list of things. We already mentioned those lists before. When a woman is on her menses, there are about 9 things that she cannot do, or that cannot be done while she's on her menses. And when I say on her menses, meaning while the blood is flowing and she's on her menses. Number 1, she cannot pray. You might want to write these down. Number 1, she cannot pray. Number 2, she cannot fast. Number 3, she cannot make tawaf around the Kaaba. Number 4, she cannot recite the Quran. Number 5, she cannot mashul mushaf. She cannot grab the mushaf. Number 6, al-lubthu fil masjid. Al-lubthu fil masjid. She cannot sit in the masjid. Number 7, wat'u fil farj. A person cannot have intercourse with their spouse. And number 8, at-talaq. A woman, while she's on her menses, she cannot be divorced. If she is divorced while she's on her menses, this is a bid'ah in the religion. This is a what? A bid'ah in the religion. And number 9, al-i'tidad bil-ashhur. Number 9 is that if a woman gets her menses, then her iddah is by her blood, not by the months. What does that mean? If a woman's in the iddah, then her iddah is based on the blood that flows, not based on the months. As many people might assume that if a woman has her menses, say she gets her menses once every other month, it's easier just to do the 3 months. You don't have that option. The option is if you are a woman that gets her menses, then you have to wait for 3 menstruation cycles. Whereas if you are a woman that does not get her menses, then this is where the 3 months come in. Wadah? Tayyib. So then, the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he said, once the blood stops flowing of these 9 things that are impermissible, only 2 of them become permissible once the blood stops flowing. Once the blood stops flowing, then a woman can be divorced before she takes a ghusl. She can also fast before she makes a ghusl. Is that clear? Any questions about that? So all of that was review. All of that was review from the previous class. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about the different categories of women when they get their menses. today's class, inshallah, we're only going to talk about a woman that just gets her menses, how to look at that situation. So if you have daughters, if you brothers have daughters, and she's getting to the age where her menses may be coming on, how do you determine it, and how do you look at it, and what should you do? What should you do? I'm going to give you two positions here. I'm going to mention the position of Imam Ahmed and the method of Imam Ahmed. And likewise, I'm going to mention a position that's very easy, and it's the position of the majority of the ulama. However, as many of the ulama mentioned, when studying this stuff, if you're teaching it, it's also very important that they understand why and how the ulama think, what they say, and how they come up with what they say. So the first thing here is called Al-Mubtada'u. Al-Mubtada'u. Al-Mubtada'u is a woman or a girl who just started getting her menses. Al-Mubtada'u, Al-Mubtada is a woman that just gets her menses. So she doesn't know, what doesn't she know? She doesn't know her cycle. She doesn't know what days, when does it come. She's new to it. So, in this case, وَتَجْلِسُ أَقَلَّهُ ثُمَّ تَغْتَسِلُ وَتُصَلِّي. So the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, Imam al-Hajjawi, he mentions that in this case, as a mubtada'ah, a woman that is just starting, she should sit for one aqallahu, the shortest amount of time for the menses. What's the shortest amount of time for the menses? 24 hours. Ahsant. Either she should sit for 24 hours. And when you say sit for 24 hours, what does that mean?
Don't pray.
She doesn't pray, and she doesn't what? Fast. And everything else that we mentioned before, for how long? For how long? 1 day. 24 hours. Ahsant. After that, ثُمَّ تَغْتَسِلُ وَتُصَلِّي. Then after that, she should what? Make a ghusl. After that first day, make a ghusl, and then she can pray, even if the blood is still flowing. So an example that some of the ulama would use, 5 days. Let's assume her menses or her blood starts flowing for 5 days. This is her first time. Your daughter, she starts bleeding. You don't know what to do. Oh man, what do I do? You open up the fiqh book. What does it say? The ulama, they say about this here, okay, if this is in the beginning, tajisu aqallahu thumma taghtasilu wa tusalli. Alright, so you tell your daughter, listen, babe, you're going to sit for 1 day, no praying, no fasting, no nothing for 1 day. After that 1 day, she's going to make a ghusl, and she's going to continue to pray after she sits for 1 day. فَإِنْ انْقَطَعَ لِأَكْثَرِهِ فَمَا دُونَ اغْتَصَلَتْ عِنْدَ انْقِطَاعِهِ. And so right now we have her sitting for 1 day, and she's going to pray for the other days and fast, even though she's still bleeding. Are you with me? Like, then, as long as if the blood stops flowing before, what's the longest amount of time the menses can be on? La. What's the longest amount of time a woman could be on her menses? What is it? 15. Like, what's the 13 then, since you mentioned it? What's the 13?
A woman can get it at the beginning of the end, the shortest amount of time before she can get the beginning.
I said, either the 13 days is the shortest amount of time between 2 mense periods. Does that make sense? Like, so then, this little girl, she's only bleeding for 5 days. So is the 5 days within the 15 days? Is it within the 15 days? Yes. So then, 1 day she prays. 1 day she doesn't pray and she doesn't fast. The next day she makes a ghusl and she prays and fasts, whatever. And then at the end, when her blood stops flowing, at the end of 5 days, she makes another ghusl again and continues. Is that clear? Mind you, this is the position of Imam Ahmed on this issue. Is that clear? طيب. فَإِن تَكَرَّرَ ثَلَاثًا فَحِيدٌ. If this continues for 3 consecutive months, then those days represent her menstrual cycle. Is that clear? طيب. وَقَضَى مَا وَجَبَ فِيهِ. And in this case, she makes up that which she left off. So for example, if she actually if she prayed during those days or if she fasted during those days that she should have been holding off because it was her menses, and she continued to pray during those days, and maybe she was fasting, she would have to make those fasts up, but not the salah. Is that clear? She will have to make those fasts up, but not the salah. Right. So this right here is considered the mubtada'ah. The mubtada'ah, the one who just starts her menses. Is that clear? Now we have three categories of the girl who just, or the woman who just starts her menses. There are three categories. So this is the first category. The woman that just starts her menses for the first time. She bleeds for 5 days. She sits for the first day, and she fasts and prays the next days after that.
That's the opinion of Imam Ahmed.
Yes, this is the position of Imam Ahmed. Now.
She bleeds for 5 hours. Every first day she should make a ghusl. 5 days there.
It's only bleeding for 5 days. All right, let me give it to you again. Her menses comes today, the first of Muharram, or the 1st of January. From the 1st to the 5th, she's bleeding. All right? From the 1st of January 1st, she's bleeding on this day. According to the fiqh of Imam Ahmed, she's going to sit for 1 day, and then she's going to make a ghusl for the next day and pray and fast every day after that. As soon as her blood stops, then she's going to make another ghusl and continue to pray and fast again. Is that clear? After whenever the blood stops. I'll just use 5 as an example. All right? Is that clear? Right. So that's the first type of woman who just has her menses for the first time. The next group is Al-Mustaq'ni. What is Al-Mustaq'ni? Have you guys ever heard of that before? Mustahaba. All right. This is a woman who blood flows more than the allotted time per having her menses period. So what that means is if a woman bleeds longer than 15 days, if a woman bleeds longer than 15 days, the blood after that is considered blood that's mustahaba, which means you might have a woman that says, well, my period comes on for 2 weeks. Or she says, my menses comes on for 3 weeks. 21 days, for example. Or 20 days, for example. If the menses comes on for 20 days, of those 20 days, how many days are considered to be mens and how many are considered to be mustahaba? 15 and 5. Ahsant. So those 5 days that come after that, you can do what during those 5 days? She can do anything else. She can pray, fast, read the Mus'haf, whatever the case may be, during those 5 days. All there? Now.
But if she's bleeding.
She is bleeding. So let me say it again. All right. Mustahaba is when a woman bleeds past the limits of the allowable time for the menstruation cycle. What that means is the maximum time that a woman can have her menses is 15 days. The maximum time a woman can have her menses is for 15 days. Anytime she bleeds after that 15-day period, that blood is considered mustahab. She is considered mustahaba. Yani, that blood is not considered mens blood, which means that she can pray, fast, and do everything else, read the Mus'haf into the end of it, because that blood is not considered menstruation blood. Now.
What do you mean by reading Mus'haf, the Quran?
Yeah, Mus'haf, the Quran.
Because you touch it?
Yes. Yes. Right. So then the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, وَإِنْ عَبَرَ أَكْثَرَهُ فَمُسْتَحَابَةٌ. And he says, if she bleeds longer. Now we're talking about a woman, as this category is, a mustahaba. Mubtada'a, mustahada, mumayyiza. So this girl, this is her first time getting her menses. Okay? You have a daughter, this is her first time getting her menses. She's bleeding. Her bleeding lasts longer than 15 days. Pay attention to this description. The blood lasts longer than 15 days. Huh? She's a beginner. And lastly, the blood is mumayyiza. Mumayyiza, it means she can look at it and determine whether the blood is either going to be black, thick, with a smell to it, or it may be thin, red, and light, and not much of a smell to it. Anytime a woman gets these two different types of blood during her menses, this is considered mumayyiza. Mumayyiza, yani it means you can distinguish between the two colors. You can distinguish between the texture. You can distinguish between the different types of blood. This is the second type. We didn't even go to the third. Is that clear? So right now we have the regular mubtada. Easy, 5 days is easy. Okay. The next one is that it goes longer than the allotted time of 15 days. And it's distinguishable. You can look at it. She can look at it and say, that, it's real thick for 5 days or 6 days. And then the rest of the time is bright red. In the beginning, it's dark. It smells. It's thick. Then later on, she says it becomes light red and it's light, the color, it changes. The texture changes. It doesn't have the same smell, so on and so forth. طيب. The Shaykh rahimahullah, he said, فَإِنْ كَانَ بَعْضُ دَمِهَا أَحْمَرُ وَبَعْضَهُ أَسْوَدُ وَلَمْ يَعْبُرْ أَكْثَرُهُ وَلَمْ يَنْقُصْ عَنْ أَقَلِّهِ فَهُوَ حِيدُهَا. He says, in this case, if some of the blood was red and some of the blood was black, وَلَمْ يَعْبُرْ أَكْثَرُهُ, and if it doesn't go over the 15 days, وَلَمْ يَنْقُصْ, and it's not less than 24 hours, then that right there for that girl would be considered her menses. Is that clear? So for that young girl, in that case, that would be considered her menses. So whether it's dark or red, and it doesn't exceed the time period, then that would be considered her menses. Right. Now, mind you, this topic is very detailed. So we're brushing it up in a real general sense as not to confuse people, because there's a lot with regards to this topic here. So it says, وَلَمْ يَنْقُصْ عَنْ أَقَلَّهُ فَهُوَ حَيْضُهَا تَجْلِسُ فِي شَهْرِ الثَّانِي. Now, if you remember, we said that in the beginning, they do it for 3 months, right? We said that يَتَكَرَّرْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَشْهُرٍ. In the beginning, we said that she starts from the first type. This is the second type. The first type is the little girl who gets it for 1 day, it bleeds, then it stops at the end of 5 days. He said we do this for 3 consecutive months, and if that's what it is, then that becomes her menses. We said that, right? Yes or no? Type. For the second group, her blood is a lot longer, is distinguishable in color, and it lasts for 15 days or longer. All right? Mustahaba. In this case, if it becomes clear and distinguishable, then this, in this case for her, becomes her menses. So the next month during this time, she was sick. Because it's clearer. It's distinguishable. The fact that it's black, that black, dark, thick, is considered the blood for the menses, and the red is not considered the blood for the menses. So in this case, it's easier because it's distinguishable. Is that clear? طيب. So then he says, وَالْأَحْمَرُ إِسْتَحَاضَ. As he says, وَتَجْلِسُ فِي الشَّهْرِ الثَّانِي وَالْأَحْمَرُ إِسْتَحَاضَ. He says, so she's going to sit for the second month, and that bright red blood, that's called blood mustahaba. Istahaba, yani it's extra. It's not considered the menses blood. طيب. وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ دَمُهَا مُمَيِّزَةً قَعَدَتْ غَالِبَ الْحَيْضِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَهْرٍ. And so the Shaykh rahimahullah, he said that, now this is the third type. So the third type is a mubtada'a, a girl, a woman who just started getting her menses. Mustahada, that it continues the flow, but is غَيْرُ مُمَيِّز. Yani you cannot distinguish between it. It's all one color all the way through. She can't look and say, well, it could be this or it could be that. I don't know. It looks all the same. So the first one is very easy. It's not long. It's short. It's an easy process. The second one is long. It's after the 2 weeks, after the 15 days. But the thing is, it's distinguishable. She can say, yeah, for the first 7 days, it was real bright. Real dark. And then it got really light blood. Okay. She could look at that and say, okay, this is clear. This time is your menses. The other blood is not considered menses. So next month, you can sit these days. The third category, the blood still flows. She's a new person getting her menses, but she cannot distinguish in the color. She cannot distinguish the blood at all. It looks all the same. Past that time. And the blood you cannot distinguish. It says, وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ دَمُهَا مُمَيِّزًا قَعَدَتْ غَالِبَ الْحَيْضِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَهْرٍ. That in this case, she sit for if her blood continues to flow and she cannot distinguish it, that she should sit for the highest amount of time for the menses every month, or the ghalib al-hayd every month. In other words, she should sit for 6 or 7 days every month. And this is after she does the 3 months consecutively looking at her blood. This is for the third category. Again, the third category is the woman who just starts getting her menses, but she cannot distinguish the blood. And it goes beyond the limit for a woman getting her menses. In this case, what is required for her to do is to sit for the most likely amount of time for a woman to have her menses. How many days is that? Ghalibuha. What is the most frequent days that a woman gets her menses? 6 or 7 days. So she's going to sit those 6 or 7 days because she can't distinguish, right? Since she cannot distinguish, she's going to do that for 3 months. Then after that, she's going to what? She's going to go back to that which is normal, the 6 or 7 days. So for the first 3 months, she's going to look and watch. All right. Imam Ahmed, this is the position of Imam Ahmed. As some of the ulama say, this is difficult. Right or wrong? If you look, you got to look, you got to check, and this is difficult. So they say, the Qawla Jamhur, the majority of the scholars of Al-Islam, they hold the position from them, Imam Muwaffiq ad-Din ibn Qudama, and others. They hold the position for a woman who just starts getting her menses. And as many of the scholars say, this is the position that seems to be easier, that many ulama probably will give you a fatwa based on this position right here. As it is simple, it's not complex. You can't, it's going to be difficult for most people to really understand. So he said, وَعَنْهُ تَجْلِسُ دَمُهَا قَوْلَ الْجَمْهُورِ تَجْلِسُ الدَّمْ وَلَا يَزِيدْ عَلَى غَالِبِهَا. In this case, she's going to sit for whenever she's bleeding. Whenever she's bleeding, the blood, that's going to be considered her blood for her menses. If she just starts, whenever she sees blood, you're not going to make her bleed one day, or when she bleeds one day, it's okay, make her ghusl and continue to pray. La. You're going to let her, as soon as her blood comes, you're going to consider it mens from the very beginning. And then as it changed, you change.
But
and that's the Qawla Jamhur. That's the position.
That's overriding what Imam Ahmed.
Yes, it's overriding.
So now, if you take that view, it's when your daughter has her menstrual cycle, she doesn't pray or fast.
Yes.
The whole time instead of
unless as long as it doesn't go over 15 days.
No, but I'm saying, like Imam Ahmed is saying, she makes ghusl on her first day and she can fast and pray.
Yes.
Now
the Qawla Jamhur
saying that you just that's your period.
Yes. Yes. And as many of the scholars say, this is the easier one. It's easier to do that. And Allah knows best. Allah Ta'ala knows best. But this chapter here is very intricate. So with that, we're going to stop on that. The next issue that we're going to cover is a mustahada al-mu'tada, a woman who normally gets her menses. Now, we're not talking about people who just started getting their menses now. Now we're talking about a woman who normally gets her menses, but it's over 15 days. It lasts longer, and we'll talk about that, inshallah ta'ala, next week. We'll finish out this chapter. Any questions about this? Okay, I have some questions. Did everybody write down the principles as it relates to the women's menstrual cycle? There were 8 principles we mentioned from the very beginning. You got 5 through 8. Like, because you cannot, it's going to be very difficult to understand this chapter unless you understand these 8 principles. Principle number 1, La hayda qabla tis'i sinin. There's no menses for a woman before the age of 9. There's no menses before the age of 9 years old. So what does that mean? If you have a daughter and she's bleeding at 8 years old and your daughter prays 5 salawat a day, do you tell her to stop praying or does she continue to pray? Rather, I have another question. If a woman say she has mustahaba, she's always bleeding. There's some women that bleed all the time. Do they still pray? Do they fast? Or do they not pray and they not fast?
Because every 15 days they pray.
All the time?
Yeah.
Right. Huh?
Yeah, after the 15 days.
So okay, good. So after the 15 days, she bleeds all the time. In this case, does this woman, can she still pray? Can she fast? Ahsan, she has to make wudu before she prays for every salah. Wudu. La. That would be a mushaqqa kabira. Imagine a woman that's always bleeding. And after her mens time is up, then she has to, she's bleeding all the time. You're going to say she has to take a ghusl after every salat. It's going to be difficult. And likewise, so the ulama, they compare this to silsilatul bowl. Silsilatul bowl is sometimes you have people that they urinate all the time. Constant urination. They can't control their urine. They urinate all the time. It's called silsilatul bowl. This is a type of sickness. Right? Perhaps a person may have a problem, so on and so forth, and they urinate all the time, continuously. In this case, even if they're urinate, they have the condition for them is to make wudu for every salah. For every salah. So the ulama yuqis ala dhalik. They make an analytical deduction based off of that situation. And say for the woman who bleeds all the time, this is her situation, is similar to that. And Allah Ta'ala a'lam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Any other questions about this? So then, we're going to get back to it. The first one, number 1, is La hayda qabla tis'i sinin. There is no menses before 9 years old. Wala ba'da khamsa sinin. Khamsin. Wala ba'da khamsin. And there is no menses after 50 years of age. However, this is a majal al-khilaf. This is an issue of khilaf bayna ahlul ilm. Because there are some women that get their menses at 50 years old. There's some women that get their menses at 50 years old. And they say majority of these issues are based upon al-istiqra. Al-istiqra. Does anyone know what al-istiqra is?
The most likely case.
Al-istiqra is another form of dalil, another form of hujjah or proof in Islam that many of the scholars of al-Islam use. Al-istiqra, this means that the scholars of al-Islam, they have read everything there is to read about this topic, and this is what they seem to be more likely to be correct. Based on what? Based on their due diligence and research in this particular area. Then they come up with an academic guess or a conclusion, what could possibly be the best possible answer for that particular situation or issue. Is that clear? Right. So then we said number 1 and number 2, that a woman or a girl does not get her menses before 9 and after 50. Before 9 and after 50. The reason why they mention before 9 and after 50 is a statement of Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, where he said, رَأَيْتُ جَدَّ لِإِحْدَ وَعَشْرِينَ سَنَةً. He said, Imam al-Shafi'i, that I saw a grandmother that was 21 years of age. He said, I saw a grandmother that was 21 years of age, and this is due to her being very young, at least 9 years of age, having her menses, getting pregnant, having a child at 9 years of age. That child had a child at 9 years of age, and now she became a grandmother at 21. Right. So, Imam al-Shafi'i. Yeah. Right. The third one, La ma'a hamlin. So then, not before 9, not after 50, and not while a woman is pregnant. So we hear women that are pregnant, they still get their menses. That blood that comes is not considered menses. It's not considered menses. They consider it dam al-fasad, like mustahada. Dam al-fasad. It's not considered menses. Allah Ta'ala Adam. Right. The next one is وَأَقَلُّ يَوْمٌ وَلَيْلَةٌ. The least amount of time is 24 hours. The least amount of time for a woman to get her menses is 24 hours. That's number 4. Number 5, أَكْثَرُهُ 15 يَوْمًا. The longest amount of time that a woman can have her menses is 15 days. وَغَالِبُهُ 6 أَوْ 7. And a woman is more likely to have her menses for 6 or 7 days. وَأَقَلُّ طُهْرٍ بَيْنَ الْحَيْضَتَيْنِ 13 يَوْمًا. The least amount of time between two menses, or between two mens periods, is 13 days. Is that clear? Not 15. Is that clear? Huh? For example, a woman, she has her menses on January 1st. It goes off January 7th. Right? It comes back on January 14th. She says, my menses came back on the 14th. Are you with me? Is that possible? Between two mens periods, is that possible? Listen to the question. The question is, January 1st, a woman had her menses. January 1st, it went off on January 7th. The week after that, January 14th. January 14th, her menses came on again. She said, my menses came on again. Is that possible? That's 7 days between the two. Ahsant. Then the shortest amount of time between two menstrual periods is how many days? 13 days, according to the fiqh of Imam Ahmed. طيب. وَلَا حَدَّ لِأَكْثَرِهَا وَلَا حَدَّ لِأَكْثَرِهِ. And there is no limit to the distance between one mens period ending and the beginning of another one. So for example, if her menses ended on the 7th of January and came on the 1st of January, and it ended on the 7th of January, from the 7th of January, it didn't come back on again until March 15th. Is that possible? Mumkin? Is that possible? Right. Say it goes off on January 7th. It doesn't come back on until May 5th. So what if she gets divorced in January? Her brother divorces his wife in January. He says, man, he's doing the numbers. She's not going to be out of iddah for 6-7 months. Or is it permissible for him to say, we're just going to switch it to the 3 months, and then, your 3 months, you're done? Huh? Is it what do you do? Ahsant. You got to wait 3 menstrual cycles. You cannot fast forward and say, you know what, that's too long. Let's just do the 3 months and we're done. Walder? There's no limit, or there's no, no maximum time period for a woman to have her menses. There's no maximum time period. So for example, if a menses ends on the 7th of January and she started on the 1st, she can go all the way until May, for example, and get her menses again. That'll be her second menses. From January to May, sometimes.
So the distance between the time.
Yes, the distance between, there's no limit, or there's no specified time period between the distance between two mens periods.
So within that 11 time, you just have to wait for it. If you want to divorce, you have to wait for 3 months.
Say again?
Within that 11 time, you have to wait for 3 months. If a man want to divorce a woman.
La. If a man wants to divorce a woman, if a man wants to divorce his wife, and her menses comes on in January. Let's assume he divorced her according to the sunnah, right? Because that's a whole other issue. He divorces his wife, and her menses comes on, right? He divorces her first, and then her menses come on, for example. That's one hayd, right? Then he has to wait 3. Thalathatul quru. He has to wait 3 menstrual periods. 3 menstrual periods. So the first one was in January. So he's thinking, okay, by February, March, she should be cool. La. The next one, it might not come until March. The third one might not come until August. Wadah? Tayyib. The only time you can use months is for a woman that does not get her menses, period. For a woman that does not get her menses, period. Is that clear? Tayyib. So what number did we stop on? Number 7. Tayyib. Number 8. We already did number 8. Khalas, that's it. We got the 8. All right? Tayyib. Any questions about this? Faddal.
Within the 13 days, in case it happens in 6 days, so you take that as...
If what happens in 6 days? So it starts for 6 days, it goes off, it comes back on.
Yes.
All right, is it within the 15-day time period? Because if it's within the 15 days, then it will go part of the first menses. Because we said initially that the longest period of the mens can be what? 15 days. So let's say, for example, the beginning, January 1st, her menses comes on. Boom, she sits. January 1st, all the way up until the 6th, goes off. 1 day, 2 days, then it comes back on again. That coming back on again is part of her first menses, and that's not up until she reaches 15 days. If it comes after that 15 days, then that afterwards will be considered dam mustahaba. It will be blood that is not menses, in which case she can still pray and fast. Well, is that clear? Like, any other questions? Khalas. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.